this was a humdinger of a night here on day 3 of the Republican National Convention. And so, to wrap it all up, we're going to bring on Major Garrett, our chief White House correspondent, and Mo Rocca, our correspondent from CBS Sunday Morning, who's on the lam from Sunday Morning this week, hanging out with us, to talk about some of the things that we witnessed today, some of the things that we heard, some of the things that we saw. We've got a lot of great video that we are going to show you that you may have missed during the last couple of hours, and also some great sound bites from all the speakers that spoke today. But first, Major, we got to get to the moment that shocked everybody. I was in that room back there with other members of the CBS News team.
The brain trust.
The brain.
Okay.
Well, Bob Schieber was there with me. So let's, right?
The biggest brain trust right there.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And all of a sudden, when this moment happened, when it appeared that Ted Cruz was not going to endorse Donald Trump, we saw members first in the New York delegation start to yell for Trump and to start to chant, hold your pledge or stick to your pledge or something, you know.
Right, and it wasn't about polishing furniture, okay?
No. No, it was the furthest thing away from polishing furniture.
Right.
It was
do what you said you're going to do. Support the nominee.
Support the nominee.
Why are we here? Hello, existential moment, Republican Party.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, are you going to be in or out?
Yes.
And he said what he thought was a magic word for the Ted Cruz approach to politics, conscience.
Yeah, right. Vote your conscience.
I'm a conscience-driven conservative. But conscience has a very specific and negative meaning for those delegates, especially in the New York delegation. It's code word for don't vote for Trump. You know this guy's unfit for the White. I'm in my own coded language, I'm saying, conscience, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not really with him. You shouldn't be either. Feel free.
Yeah.
To remove yourself from all the pressure in this room. And the New York delegation right up front essentially started bellowing at Ted Cruz, no way, we're not doing it. You do what you're supposed to do.
Vote your conscience, which is what
and I will tell you, I was standing in the middle of the Texas delegation. Hello, thank you. Thank you. You know, all my fans down there, they just love to muss the hair. They just can't get their thing. I don't blame them. Can you? I know. Can you blame them, Mo? Honestly not. And the Texas delegation was also confused for a couple of reasons. A lot of them are still for Ted Cruz. And they're like, what is it? Is this moment good or bad? And then there was the disturbance up here. Trump starts to walk in. Then the Ted Cruz are like, well, should we be with Ted or Donald or what's going on? There was sort of a vapor lock moment in the Texas delegation. And then Trump comes in, steals Cruz's thunder.
And he didn't look happy. If we have that moment where we see
himself?
Trump, he did not look happy.
No.
He looked really upset when he came in.
Because there was an expectation within some elements of the Trump campaign that there would be a much more aggressive and enthusiastic endorsement, and it didn't materialize at all. Well, essentially what Ted Cruz did was, I'm going to give you a math problem. The nominee is here. His name is Donald Trump. The stakes are high in the election. Do the math.
Yeah.
That's as low as you can be on the endorsement scale.
Well, as a New Yorker, I can tell you, we hate the word conscience. Anytime it's uttered, it just rankles you.
It's just, I mean,
it's just. I actually look. I'm going to, contrary to what our ATG colleagues after the gavel.
That's us.
Right.
That's us,
dude. Said, I think that what Ted Cruz did was actually kind of relatively badass, and I'm not sure that it's. I mean, they pledged to support, not to endorse, right? And on the second page of the speech, he actually did say it was a big applause line. He said, and yes, build a wall, which sounded like code for being sort of supportive. Obviously, he wasn't being entirely supportive, but it reminded me actually of that moment that I thought was kind of thrilling when in a South Carolina debate when Trump went after the Bushes about the war, and he had 3,000 people booing him. And up to that point, I don't think Donald Trump had ever looked better than that, because it just showed such fortitude. So I'm not convinced that Ted Cruz was shocked and thought that this was a miscalculation.
Well, I'll tell you. So in our CBS broadcast, I had the pleasure of meeting a woman named Kendall Jessup from Longview, Texas, about 2 miles east of Dallas. Ardent Ted Cruz supporter, totally pissed off.
Really?
So this is flat wrong.
Well, so
get over yourself was essentially her reaction. I'm a Cruz supporter, she said. I always have been. I wanted him to endorse, and watching that to me was like, get over yourself and get on with it. That was her reaction.
Why then, Major, would the campaign, the Trump campaign, agree to give Senator Cruz a primetime speaking slot? And there was another interesting fact that I learned.
Not prime time, not
right,
maximum network exposure in the 10 o'clock hour, but pretty close.
But pretty close. Pretty close.
They might have crept over.
And also, I don't know if
which
our
I think
audience,
is Ted Cruz's code name. That's just a joke. Come on. Let it go. Let it go,
That's what
Twitter.
we're doing after the gavel, and anything goes after the gavel. So there are people, I don't know if our viewers can see them when we show shots of the audience, that are in these neon green hats, and there's some still on the floor right now. These are whips, and their job is to go to the different delegates, and they spend weeks leading up to this moment, getting to know the delegates, getting to know some of the chairmen, and their job is to go to these different delegates if they get out of control and rowdy and bring them into line, whip them into shape. I'm told that they have over 225 whips at this convention versus 135 for Mitt Romney back in 2012. So what's going on there? Again, a message that the campaign doesn't have control of this convention.
Yeah, and they're not very good at what they do. Honestly, I've watched them.
What do they have? Do they have like little
they basically, I would describe their most effective role at this convention is keeping the aisles semi-clear.
Oh, okay.
And doing one other thing, barking the words "lock her up." They whip that up.
Which they do, yeah.
So the Trump people can't say, well, the delegates are just spontaneously venting their frustration with Hillary Clinton. No, the orange caps the last two nights, green caps tonight, lock her up, lock her up. I saw that.
I keep waiting. I'm sorry, for like the end of the convention, a crescendo of lock her ups, and then the backdrop to split open, and for Hillary Clinton to be bound like Fay Ray and King Kong.
as the big doors start to close.
Lock her up, lock her up.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, you never know.
Can somebody on Twitter create that right now?
Right.
Do a GIF?
I'm sure there's going to be somebody who's going to do it because you're asking for it. So the other thing that I found really interesting is we should not forget that this was the moment that America got to know Governor Mike Pence. And two things that I thought were interesting. One is that, and Major, you'll tell me what you think. One is that he spent a lot of time selling Donald Trump, not so much talking about himself and talking about who he was. He talked, I thought I tweeted there was a very sweet moment where he blew a kiss to his wife. I'm told he's very, very close to his family, a deeply spiritual and religious man. But he spent a lot of time selling this crowd on Trump and not a lot about himself. So I still don't. And the country. But does that mean that the country still doesn't know who Governor Pence is?
A little bit. But that is, if you're going to trade on one of two options in your own speech as running mate, always trade on building up the nominee. You'll never go wrong there. Not with the nominee, not with his advisors, not with his family.
Trump. Yeah.
And in the end, Mike Pence knows what this race is about. It is not about him. It's about Trump.
And coal.
And yes, because he digs it. Did you get that?
He digs that.
They did there?
And they had signs. The whips had signs for people.
And we're wild about whale oil.
Exactly. So here's an interesting dynamic about the Pence speech. I was sitting in the Ohio delegation, which was right behind the Pennsylvania delegation. Pennsylvania looks more inclined to Trump right now, which makes it a swing state of some significance. All throughout the Pence speech, those delegates from Pennsylvania, they're up and down like piston rods in an F-150 on an open mile of road, okay? Up and down, yeah. Ohio, they're all seat-belted in. Most of them. Seat-belted in, not standing up.
Yeah.
They stood up for Mama Pence. They stood up for Marine son Pence. They stood up for every anti-Hillary line, and they stood up for coal and for law enforcement. Everything else,
interesting,
kind of lackadaisical.
Yeah.
Ohio.
And Ohio. And by the end of the speech, the delegation had already left. Half of the delegation, at least, if not more, had already left. One of the few parts of the delegates on the floor to bail early. Well, who's not here from the Ohio delegation? John Kasich. And there are still a lot of Kasich people within the Ohio delegation unsure about Trump. So. And Maryland was just to our left. Kentucky, Pennsylvania, all of them really, really enthusiastic about the speech. Ohio, still a little on the fence. And that was an interesting thing to observe.
I mean, we interviewed several members of Congress today on CBSN, and we asked them why is Governor Kasich not here. This is something that he lobbied for. He wanted this convention in his state. It's an economic boon for his state. So he didn't get the nomination. It's all about party unity. it really looks bad. And Congresswoman Marsha Blackburn said that it does really look bad, and it's looking like sour grapes.
It does to many. But in the Ohio delegation, they're still not certain. So if you're
But this is such an important state.
If you're working on the assumption that all politics is local, now John Kasek's not going to run for re-election. He's already been re-elected. His political career is effectively over here in Ohio. He's just standing where he wants to stand, and a little bit like Cruz, looking toward the future. And if this doesn't work out for Trump, he wants to be among the alternatives, and he's staking a claim to that by his conspicuous absence.
And I'm sure Trump would have prefers probably that Kasich not show up at all than show up and do a non-endorsement endorsement.
Yeah, how many more of those can we have?
Yeah,
Although Scott
you never
Walker,
know.
I didn't.
You saw it was. What'd you think?
Well, first of all, he leads the world's worst sing-along. The whole "America deserves better."
Yeah,
I kept thinking America deserves butter. First of all, which is true because I hate margarine. But
or cheese.
Yeah, right. And
I can't believe it's not butter.
It is a dairy state. But I just have to say, because it is a visual medium, and we should do this with the Democrats as well. Scott, part of the problem with some of these candidates is, I have to say, it's sort of an off-putting look. Like, I think that Scott Walker just needs an eye enlargement. His eyes, they're so... You have to deal with these people all the time.
I do.
So you can't agree with that, but I know inside you are. It's just very strange looking.
Well, I learned a long time ago. I learned a long time ago.
Like Elliot Spitzer, who's a Democrat.
Right. Not to
both have like rat eyes.
Yeah, Elliot Spitzer doesn't.
Well, as a matter of preservation of my soul, I learned a long time ago not to look into a politician's eyes.
Because you may never be able to turn away.
Or you just may lose your soul.
will.
It just gets sucked out of you.
It just gets.
I'll just let you guys run with it.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to leave it at that.
I think his eyes, and I also think that, and I do think that Ted Cruz showed. I think he showed principle in the speech he gave, but I do think that his face is configured very strangely, and I think.
Well, speaking of that, Saturday Night Live said he has a punchable face. We learned tonight he has a booable speech.
Right. Exactly right. Yes, that is exactly what happened. And my favorite moment, though, of the night, barring all the political stuff, was when I forget his first name, Ruffin, the businessman, came out.
Right.
And if you ever wanted to look at a casino magnate who wears sunglasses indoors and think to yourself, I got to trust this guy. I got to trust what he's saying. Yeah, I don't know. He looked like Sonny Black from Donnie Brasco. That's what I thought. That was going through my head.
There were some good speeches. I thought Laura Ingram's speech was a pretty good speech.
She got them fired up.
She definitely got them fired. She definitely got them fired up. And she very well might.
Is that right?
I think so. I think she's moving more and more in that direction of talk show, building a large brand, and engaging politics at a level of like personal commitment. And it seems like she's moving in that direction. I feel that gravity taking her closer to actually running for office and getting in the game, and not just talking about it anymore.
And she was, in the first half, she was talking about. I expected it to be more vituperative in the beginning, but she was talking about love of country in a very sort of persuasive way.
Yeah,
she's hugely popular. She's hugely popular with this crowd, but all across the country as well. We're going to take a quick break, but as we go to break, we want to play. Let's show some of that video of Ted Cruz in the moments right before his speech ended, when Donald Trump appeared on the stage, and pandemonium in the convention. Are we stretching? Tom Patzner, our floor director, is telling me that he's doing this, which means stretch.
I'm going to say then that Pam Bondi, I did not think it was nice for the chief law enforcement officer of a state to start saying lock her up.
Right. I mean, again,
that's not dignified.
It's not dignified. Lock her up is just something that ought to be dispensed with at this convention, just as a matter of rhetoric, because it is at a sort of, even at a rhetorical level, just un-American.
Yes.
It's just fundamentally un-American. And you can say, I think she should have been charged, but if you essentially are arguing for the eradication of due process, you're arguing something that's not really about what this country is about.
Exactly.
For any party, for any political persuasion, at any time in its history.
To have a member of a political party chanting to jail an opposition member of a political party sounds to me like the things that I used to see in some of the countries that I've covered outside of this one.
Right, and what used to be considered in this country in a bipartisan way odious in any other country.
Right.
Flat out.
Yeah.
Straight out. Odious, repellent, not acceptable.
We have a tweet now from Donald Trump. Let's go to the Twitter feed.
To us?
There it is.
He's
Wow,
watching.
Ted Cruz got booed off the stage, didn't honor the pledge. I saw his speech 2 hours early, but let him speak anyway.
No big
deal. No big whoop. There's so much passive aggressiveness going on in this tweet. I mean, wow. Right? Meaning, like, my peeps are behind me. Right. Ted Cruz got booed off the stage, didn't honor the pledge. I saw it. I knew it was going to happen. I let him do it anyway. That's how awesome I am. That's how awesome my people are. Am I reading that wrong?
No. I think that is the absolute perfect translation.
And that was
I
only
was
5
going to
minutes
say,
ago.
I wish that there were audio with these, but you really don't need them.
No.
You can really hear it.
No, you really don't.
Well, that's why an earlier tweet tonight when he said the forensic analysis of Melania's speech, and I went,
yes.
he doesn't use he's a smart guy, but he doesn't use the word forensic. And I only like his tweets when they really come from him, which is almost all the time.
All the time, yeah. I mean I don't think they're unfiltered tweets.
This is his tweet.
So,
right.
and you know
all that's missing is big league.
And by the way, Pence needs to know how to pronounce huge.
Is it Major? You've been in enough of these rallies. I can never tell through my television. Is it big league or bigly?
No, big league.
Okay, it's big league.
Like the big leagues.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like big leagues, not big league.
It always sounds like big league to a lot of people on Twitter.
No. Big league.